Somewhere in the cold, northern winter darkness, it's said an insatiable and malicious predator stalks the woods, endlessly hunting, and no matter how much it eats, it will never be satisfied. This legendary predator is known by the native tribes of North America by many names, but the most common is the Wendigo, which roughly translates to the evil spirit that devours mankind. The legend of the Wendigo originates from the folklore of a Native American group of people called the Algonquin, who inhabited central Canada as well as the Great Lakes region of the United States. In its early days, the Wendigo was described as a malevolent spirit that would creep into the minds of desperate people, most often in the winter when food was the most scarce. While many natives died of starvation during the winter, some among them were left clinging to life, finding what few inadequate scraps they could. However, once the spirit of the Wendigo was embedded within the minds of these people, it would begin to offer them notions. It would offer them an escape from their hunger, and it told them all they would have to do is eat their fellow people. If someone were to submit to these thoughts and resort to cannibalism to stay alive, even just one bite, there would be no turning back. From that point on, the spirit of the Wendigo would take complete control over a person, driving them to want to hunt and consume more human flesh. Over time, the person's body will be transformed by the Wendigo into a freakishly tall and bony creature with pale gray skin pulled tightly over its bones, its face containing two glossed-over, owl-like eyes within sunken, dark pits, and its lips will be shredded and totally receded to reveal a mouth filled with razor-sharp teeth, all the while giving off the smell of decay and death. But don't let its emaciated look and bony figure fool you. The Wendigo is described to be frighteningly fast and incredibly strong, not to mention its extremely heightened senses of smell, sight, and hearing, all while being immune to the harsh cold of the winter. The more human flesh this creature would consume, the larger it would grow and the hungrier it would become. At times, a Wendigo wouldn't actually need to chase its prey. Sometimes, in order to lure an unsuspecting victim out and into the woods, it would mimic human voices, often calling out to the victim. And if by some unfortunate circumstance a lone hunter were to encounter this creature, let's just say they were unlikely to be heard from again. However, the ones who encountered the Wendigo and managed to get away weren't exactly safe, because it was said that another method of becoming a Wendigo was simply coming into contact with one. And sometimes a Wendigo could even invade people's dreams, eventually driving them insane. The story of the Wendigo was widespread throughout the native Algonquin communities, who often had food scarcity during the winter months. Even just the fear of this evil spirit would encourage communities to stockpile food and share with others, as well as promote positive relations so as not to provoke a Wendigo to appear. In later Algonquin history, during the 17th century, when European fur traders made their way to the region, native stories of the Wendigo would make the Europeans' imaginations run wild. Eventually, the description of the Wendigo would vary away from the original depiction of a pale-skinned, bony and human-like creature to a more animalistic depiction, often describing it to have elk-like antlers, dark fur, and a more lumbering stature. This more animalistic depiction of the Wendigo, however, did not originate from the native Algonquin communities. In fact, that description comes from the early European explorers of the region. Nowadays, the idea of a human turning into one of these creatures could be met with some criticism, but there is evidence to suggest that the legend may not be too far from the truth. Although hotly debated between historians, Wendigo psychosis is what's thought to be an endemic and cultural mental disorder. Endemic meaning that it's mainly observed within certain regions and cultures. A person with Wendigo psychosis could share many of the same traits as its namesake, although without the grotesque transformation. One of the best alleged accounts of Wendigo psychosis occurred in 1878 when a trapper from the Cree tribe named Swift Runner and his family were starving out in the Canadian wilderness. when suddenly Swift Runner developed a strong compulsion to cannibalize his entire family. The thing is, this was not the usual case of cannibalism for the sake of survival, because by the time Swift Runner had cannibalized his family, he knew that he was only 25 miles from the nearest Hudson Bay Company outpost. So, due to the fact that the man resorted to cannibalism, all while knowing there was an alternative within reach, is the main reason why this was labeled as a case of endemic Wendigo psychosis. Soon after this, the trapper confessed to the crime, and he was later executed at Fort Saskatchewan. During the turn of the 20th century, sightings of the Wendigo and supposed cases of Wendigo psychosis became much more rare. This is because around this time, more and more native tribes were being heavily influenced by Western culture and ideologies, leading many natives to convert from their traditional nomadic lifestyles to lead more sedentary lives. The assimilation of Native American communities into the Western world, however, hasn't stopped people from believing that the spirit of the Wendigo still exists. Nowadays, some descendants from the native Algonquins, and even some non-Native Americans, report seeing a creature resembling the Wendigo of old Algonquin folklore, roaming the deep woods of the northern wilderness. So, as a personal suggestion, the next time you're out on a long hike or a camping trip, bring some extra food, because you never know when the spirit of the Wendigo could come looking for you. Alright, if you enjoyed hearing about the legend of the Wendigo, then feel free to stick around. Alright, that's it for today. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya.